By the time they found him, the paperwork was already complete. The parking garage beneath the Federal Development Annex was quiet that night. Concrete pillars. Low, fluorescent light. A government-issued SUV idling near the exit ramp. Deputy Secretary Daniel Harrow sat alone in the driver's seat. No driver. No security detail. No advance staff. For a man who oversaw infrastructure security contracts, that detail mattered. Officials at Harrow's level did not move alone, unless someone assured them they were safe. He checked his phone once. An unsaved number. 3 words. It's been addressed. He read it twice. Then he set the phone face down. Minutes later, a security supervisor would knock on his window. No response. Paramedics arrived. The official cause of death was cardiac arrest. Sudden. Natural. Unavoidable. A statement was released before sunrise. Measured language. Condolences to the family. Praise for public service. No mention of the meeting he had just left. The system moved quickly. That was the first detail that stayed with me. My name is Jonah Klein. I used to work in federal compliance oversight. Now, I investigate institutional behavior. Not crimes in the traditional sense. Patterns. Harrow single quotes S name had crossed my desk. 3 years earlier, he had signed off on a consolidation of private security consulting contracts across multiple agencies. It was not controversial. It was efficient. Cost saving. Centralized. The kind of reform that wins. Quiet approval. His death would not have drawn my attention, except for the timing. The medical determination was finalized within hours. In high-level cases, reviews usually take longer. Additional signatures. Independent. Confirmations. Careful phrasing. This one moved fast. Too fast. That was the first crack. 2 days later, I received an encrypted message from a former colleague still inside procurement review. Are you looking at Harrow? I asked why. The reply came quickly. Because this one fits. Fits what? He did not answer. Instead, he forwarded a redacted contract summary from Harrow's department. Vendor. Argent. Strategic Advisory. Service category. Discretionary Resolution Services. The phrase was unfamiliar. It did not exist in standard federal procurement classifications. I searched archived contracts. The same phrase appeared in another agency. Different year. Different department. Same vendor. Same language. That was repetition. Repetition inside bureaucracy is rarely accidental. I requested building access logs from the annex garage. Not the video, just entry and exit. TIMASTAMPS. The response was polite. Then cautious. Then restricted. Portions of footage are unavailable due to contractual security provisions. Contractual, not classified. Contractual. Which meant a private agreement governed access. Asked which contract applied. No answer. Later that afternoon, I received a second message from my colleague. You should check last year's oversight hearings. I pulled transcripts. Buried inside a subcommittee review on risk management outsourcing was a brief exchange. A senator asked whether certain consulting frameworks allowed rapid mitigation of executive-level exposure. The witness from Argent answered calmly, "Our protocols prioritize stability over disruption." Stability. That word appeared again and again in their documentation. Stability planning, stability, restoration, stability protection. Stability from what? That question remained open. 3 days after Harrow's funeral, another headline surfaced. Assistant Commerce Secretary Linda, Vale, found unresponsive in her home office. Preliminary cause, complications related to an undiagnosed cardiac condition. The language felt familiar. Concise. Administrative. I searched vendor disclosures tied to her office. Argent Strategic Advisory appeared again. Same service category. Discretionary. Resolution Services. 2 officials. 2 agencies. Same consulting firm. Same contractual language. That was no longer coincidence. That was structure. I called Dr. Michael Brenner, a retired federal medical examiner who now consulted privately. I asked him a procedural question. How often are high-ranking officials given immediate final determinations in sudden cardiac cases? He paused. In high-profile environments, rarely, he said. Those cases are reviewed carefully. Could it still be natural? I asked. Of course, he said. That's why cardiac events are so difficult to challenge. They're common. Predictable. Plausible. Which makes them administratively efficient. He did not say that last part. He did not have to. That night, I stayed late at my office. I mapped timelines. Harrow's final meeting. Private call with Argent. Garage entry, restricted footage. Immediate. Medical declaration. Public statement before sunrise. Then Vale. Internal risk audit. Consulting call. Sudden. Death. Immediate classification. The sequences aligned. Not dramatically. Procedurally. If a pattern exists in paperwork, it often exists elsewhere first. The next morning, my office keycard failed. Temporarily deactivated. Administrative error, according to building management. Resolved within minutes. A coincidence. Perhaps. Later, I found a printed copy of Harrow's contract. Summary shifted slightly on my desk. Nothing missing. Nothing stolen. Just moved. Institutions rarely announce when they notice tension. They adjust quietly. That was escalation. I filed a formal inquiry to Argent requesting clarification on discretionary resolution services. The reply arrived the next day. Professional. Measured. Double quotes. The terminology reflects legacy, internal categorization, and does not imply operational intervention. Legacy. Another word for outdated. Except the contracts were current. I checked corporate insurance disclosures. Argent maintained a supplemental liability rider labeled Event Finalization Support. The description was vague. Post-incident stabilization and reputational continuity services. Post-incident, which suggests an incident had already occurred. I searched for any public documentation describing pre-incident. Engagement. There was none, which meant their value existed in aftermath. Management. Or an ensuring aftermath appeared orderly. That evening, I received a call from a restricted number. The voice was calm. You're drawing conclusions from incomplete information. Then provide the complete information. I replied. A pause. Consulting frameworks exist to minimize disruption, the voice said. Disruption of what? I asked. Of public trust. And how is trust maintained? I asked, silence, then carefully. Through stability. The call ended. Not a threat, a reminder that was personal exposure. I returned to last year's oversight transcript. A different senator had asked whether executive risk mitigation included terminal contingencies. The Argent representative responded, "We prepare for all outcomes within the bounds of legality." Within the bounds of legality. That phrase is elastic. Legality depends on classification. Classification depends on documentation. Documentation follows. Resolution. I revisited the quiet option language buried in one of the attachments. Quiet option protocol. The section described layered response coordination. Media management. Legal alignment. Internal communication. Control. One line stood out. Resolution must precede narrative to ensure institutional continuity. There it was again. Outcome first. Explanation second. That was philosophy, not crime. Philosophy can be more durable. A week later. A minor deputy director in a regional agency resigned abruptly. No death. No. Headline. Just a brief statement citing health concerns. His department had also contracted Argent for risk assessment services. The pattern expanded. Not only deaths. Departures. CONTAINMENTS. Stabilization S. That was the missing variable. The outcome did not need to be fatal. It needed to be decisive. And quiet. I met with a former procurement auditor who had reviewed Argent's frameworks years earlier. Off the record. He spoke carefully. They don't initiate events, he said. They're engaged when an event is likely. Likely how? I asked. When a situation presents unacceptable exposure. And what qualifies as unacceptable? I asked. He looked at me for a long moment. Anything that threatens continuity. Continuity of what? Government. Markets. Leadership. Power structures. Continuity rarely prioritizes individuals. It prioritizes systems. 2 weeks after Harrow's death, a subcommittee announced a routine review of executive consulting expenditures. Routine. Not reactive. Not urgent. The announcement was released late on a Friday afternoon. By Monday. It had vanished from the news cycle. A foreign policy crisis replaced it. Noise is insulation. Systems rely on that. Late that night, another encrypted message arrived. You're still focusing on the wrong question. I typed back, what's the right one? The reply came after several minutes. Ask who benefits from resolution. Not from death, from resolution. Harrow's department avoided scandal. Vale's department avoided scrutiny. Contracts remained intact. Markets remained steady. No investigations were launched. No. Instability followed. Resolution preceded narrative. Narrative confirmed stability. I closed my laptop and stared at the dark reflection in my office window. The city moved as usual. Traffic lights cycling. News broadcasts shifting to the next crisis. Nothing felt disrupted. That was the point. Before leaving, I checked one final file that had appeared in my inbox. Agency header redacted. Subject line intact. Preliminary assessment. Quiet option viability. Viability. Not morality. not intent.viability. I did not open the document because I already understood its purpose. Some deaths are tragedies, some deaths are suspicious, and some outcomes are managed. Daniel. Harrow's file was not hidden. It was stabilized, and stabilization was the objective. End of Episode 1.